Well, as my favorite ESPN TV host likes to say, history lesson, kids. About 75 years ago, before the Kardashians became the most famous, and some people would say infamous, sister act in town, there was another group of sisters who were as famous in their day. They didn't have a reality show, they didn't have YouTube or TikTok or social media, but they did make headlines quite often in Britain and around the world in the 1930s, which leads me to this. There is an original series that's now available on BritBox. You can check it out. It's all about the sisters, known as the Mitford Girls. And they blazed a trail throughout the 1930s and beyond. This wonderful series is called Outrageous. Recently, at the studio offices of our partner, the Richmond Sentinel, I had the chance to talk to one of the actresses from Outrageous. Now I'm sitting here in the studio offices at our partners, the Richmond Sentinel. They say that good things do come in three. I mentioned I'd be talking to one actress. Well, I got three. Before we get to them and Outrageous, let's take a look at the show.
We are the Mitford sisters. And one might say, we weren't just family. We were a force of nature.
Well, our guest now is Joanna Vanderham, Shannon Watson, and Zoe Brough. They play three of the sisters in this wonderful new show that I binge-watched a couple days ago. It's called Outrageous. Look for it on BritBox now here in Canada. Ladies, welcome to Our City Tonight.
Thank you so much.
Congratulations on the show. As I said, I really enjoyed it. I want to start right at the beginning. For people who haven't watched the show yet, it's just recently come out in Canada. It is set in the early 30s. What's interesting, the threads that ran through for me are, A, the love that you sisters all have for one another, the family, the parents, your brother, despite differences of opinions, but also there's this cloud hanging around that hindsight's everything that your characters couldn't possibly know about, and that is just what's going to culminate in a Second World War. But there's also this thing that your father brings up right at the beginning, played by the superb actor James Purfoy, about that finances are not going to be what they once were. Can you talk about your characters and how they adapt to that? And Joanna, I'll start with you.
I mean, what an incredible introduction and question. I think what makes the show super unique is that people think that like the British aristocracy had loads of money but actually it's the truth of it is that they were house rich and they'd really suffered in the financial crash. And so they are moving from kind of having whatever they want in life to realizing that that's not going to be the case. But Diana is unique in that she has married really well. And so she does stay rich. And that's why I got to have all the great costumes and all the diamonds and the 4 houses and the car and, you know, and this and this. So Diana was sort of she's the one that sort of had the money, but I think that's what makes the sisters so interesting is that you know this family isn't just a story about rich people. It's about the reality of what life was like.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong, they say that they didn't have a lot of money. They were rich, they just weren't in the rich kind of like group. And I think Fav was actually quite bad with money.
Yeah, hilariously bad with money.
He kept building houses, then moving the family, and then building another house. And then, he was just terrible with money. And you can sort of see that with like, you know, the costumes that maybe me and Zoe start off wearing, where we had we would borrow each other's clothes and Unity's wouldn't fit her quite properly. And they would be like moth bitten and
There's a genuine, sincere interest in these paths that they chase politically.
Yeah, huge. And I think Diana set the ball rolling, in my opinion, when it comes to politics and getting involved. And I think for Decca, because I can obviously only speak on her behalf, but I think, Decca saw the bigger picture, wasn't satisfied in the realm that she'd been growing up in, didn't feel like the people that she was mixing with were her tribe, and I think she found issues with that. And it was impossible to turn your head and look away at what was going on in the world in that time. I mean, the rich were getting richer, the poor are poorer, and there was such a huge inequality in the world. And I think Deckard saw an opportunity and grabbed it by the horns and just went, how can I make a difference? And how can I make my mark in the world? And that's, I guess, why she chose communism and that sort of side of the spectrum, which is obviously the opposite.
Interestingly, because I feel like they were all trying to do that. They were all trying to make their place in the world, have a say about what was going on, and be involved in a new way of life, a change of the current situation. And they just so happen to be completely opposing views on how that should be done. And I think that's what makes the show so fascinating, because it's like, well, they're all sisters. How did they possibly develop such different perspectives on how the world should be run? And that's what the show kind of delves into, the sort of nature versus nurture of it, and how people can be radicalized. And so it was really fun for us to kind of delve into that conversation.
Yeah, I think you keyed in on the word there, radicalization, because it does come about. And it's interesting that I've had several conversations with friends who have watched the show already, that the relevancy of where this show of yours takes place and what's going on today, it's astounding that it's very relevant to what's going on today.
Yeah, I mean, go ahead.
No, I was just saying, I think it is hugely relevant, and we were kind of freaked out when we were filming at how relevant it was, even nearly 100 years later on in life. But I also think there's this thing, we talk about this, but they were the it girls of the time. They were extremely, people really admired them. I think they were always in the, tabloids and the newspapers. And there's a similarity with that, with our generation, of the celebrity obsession and the celebrity culture.
And influencer culture, and where you're getting your information from.
Yeah,
and how you can be radicalized by, the echo chamber of your environment. And that right now it's the internet. And, back then it was different. But I feel like that's a really, obvious parallel to be drawn. And I think there are scenes in the show when, we're sitting, well, you guys are sitting around the dinner table and politics comes up, and everybody's put off their food. And I feel like families around the world, but North America and Britain alike, are going to be sitting there going, I've had awkward dinners like that.
Yeah, that seems interesting as well, because it's the scene when they're talking, and when Unity's sort of asking questions about politics and about this thing, Fav just she tries to shut her up. And maybe the sort of Jessica eggs her on a little bit in that scene as well, to sort of prove herself, and to prove as women for that time to have a voice.
And maybe if he'd had a conversation with you about it, you wouldn't have been set on the path that you were set on.
Yeah.
I think that's what the show kind of raises, is keep having those conversations.
Keep having the conversations.
With your loved ones.
Notice the first traits of it.
Yeah, and I would say my only criticism, ladies, is that when I was done, I kept thinking, I know there's so much more history for your characters and we need more episodes. Any chance you might know whether more are coming?
Well, we're just waiting to hear, really, I think, from the response of when it's released.
Yeah, we've got to get the viewer numbers is what's going to decide it. But they've already written the first 3 episodes, so we're hoping that the networks are backing it, and
it's on such a cliffhanger. I'm like, come on.
Oh yeah, and there's so much to come.
Yeah.
There's so many things that they get up to. I mean, it is stranger than fiction.
Well, congratulations to all 3 of you on a great show. As I said, I watched it all in one afternoon. Can't wait to see more. Outrageous is coming, or I should say is available now here in Canada on BritBox, this little firm right here. Thanks to everybody who helped set this up. And ladies, thank you very much for joining us, and congratulations on a wonderful series. I can't wait to see more.
Thank you.